All right, man. We are back already. Built with Intention episode 2, man. Crazy. It's going to be interesting to see these episodes kind of stack on top of each other. But I'm super excited, man. We are so back. All right, man. My name is Randy Finn. You already know, aka Deku Finn. Dude, I'm gonna be real with you. Like the intro, like I'm gonna just like I'm not trying to have like a crazy intro, but we finna get right into it, man. So today we're gonna talk about accountability as a man, man. So based on the title, you may be slightly confused, raising your eyebrows at it. So let's go over it. Blaming yourself will fix everything, right? We're gonna go a few layers deep on this joint. All right, so here we go. So to kick this off, I want to open this up with the quote from one of my favorite, like, I guess, celebrities, Will Smith. Right. By the way, Smith is a brilliant man. Definitely admire him. So I'm gonna paraphrase what he said. He said essentially, you must know the difference between fault and responsibility. So it may not be your fault that something happened to you. However, it is your responsibility to make sure that specific thing that happened to you does not shape you and derail the rest of your life, right? So that was me paraphrasing that. Look up Will Smith, chess master, and there should be a video where he puts it in his own words. You can YouTube that. So I'm gonna take that quote, right, and I'm gonna use an example from my own personal life to make that point, right. So honestly, with you guys, I plan on being like extremely transparent when it comes to doing this pod. So I don't mind sharing, things about my personal life and all of that stuff. So let's start it off. So growing up, my father struggled heavily with alcohol addiction, right? And it caused a lot of different issues. Like when I was younger, growing up, all that stuff within the family. And there was some fallout from it. Me and my siblings, I feel like we had our own different experiences with our father, and I'm sure we took away different things from our childhood. By the way, I'm gonna give you guys fun facts about myself as I tell as I tell different stories. But I'm the youngest of three. My older brother is 7 years older than me, and my sister is 5 years older than me. And then obviously they're 2 years apart. So shout out to my big bro, my big sis. Love you guys. Love you guys. So the point is, it's not my fault. So obviously, my father's alcoholism did affect me in certain ways. But now that I'm like a grown man, I can't hold on to that, and I haven't held on to that. Like it hasn't shaped me at all. I took it. It's almost like the beginning of my character. I took it and I learned from it, and I just went on about my life with having that like that journey just like a part of me, if that makes sense. So here we go. But by the way, yo, shout out to my dad, man. Amazing guy, man. I love my dad so much, man. I love you, dad. Love you so much. Great man. But yeah, so it's not my fault that my father might have had, his issues or his struggles, but it's my responsibility to not let his decisions fully shape me and my identity. So I remember telling myself at a young age that, dude, like I don't want to drink. Like I remember like based on my childhood experience and different things I saw with my own father, I made a decision. Like, dude, I remember the exact moment. I was 13. I made a decision. Like, dude, like I don't think I'm gonna drink. So, and it was a smart move, man, because as I've gotten older, I've seen how people act when it comes to different substances. Because this isn't about alcohol. This ain't even about just substances. This could be about any type of thing that you consider a vice, sex, drinking, smoking, whatever, right? But we just talking about alcohol to make the point. I've seen how people act to either get these substances or when they're on these substances. And I'm glad I just don't have that as a vice. So let me be clear. I have drank in my life before. So I just turned 28 back in November. It's March 8th at the time of me recording this. Um yeah, so I turned 28 back in November. And no joke, I didn't drink until I turned 25. So, like a few years ago, essentially, is the first time I ever drank. But it was just in a controlled environment. And when I look back on it, the only reason I even said it was like, dude, I'm turning 25. Like, I'll have a few drinks, right? Um, it wasn't like, so like, it was only when I went out to bars too. You know what I mean? So I went out maybe like a 3 month span of me like going out. like just kind of going out casually. You can call it like a sprint where I drank and I went out. It wasn't every weekend, but it was very often, but it wasn't every weekend, right? Or maybe it was, I don't know. Then I kind of realized that was some bullshit, like going out drinking and shit. I might low-key dig deeper into that on a different episode. But I'm gonna leave that there for now. So quick recap on this point. It's not my fault. Sorry. Well, it's not my fault, but what I meant to say is it's not your fault that you may have had certain things that happen to you that are out of your control. However, it's your responsibility to do everything within your power to not let that shape you. It's kind of like you got to deal with the cards you were dealt kind of situation. Because some people get dealt really, really good cards, and then some people get dealt really, really shitty cards. You know, you just got to make the most. Like, you just got to play the game and make the most out of what you have. And you got to turn your life into your ideal life, essentially. So, last thing on this Will Smith point. He also added that when you don't take ownership or full responsibility, it causes you to adopt the victim mentality. And that victim mentality is essentially you just blaming everyone and everything else as to why you're in the predicament you're in. And once again, it's not your, like, so when I say it's not your fault, for instance, if you are born in a situation where, I don't know, your mom might have been sick or, you know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about you spawn into a situation that you had no control over, but this is a situation. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you doing something stupid at the age of, I don't know, 25, yeah, that's your fault. But I'm saying if you are born into a situation, and not even if you're born into it, some things we just can't control everything. That's just a fact in our lives. But some things are not your fault. You just dealt really shitty cards sometimes, right? So that's kind of a different situation. So let me get back on script. I be going off script like a motherfucker. So the victim mentality is essentially you blaming everyone and everything else as to why you were in your predicament. Once again, it's not your fault. Some things may be your fault, but that's a different situation. However, you can't just sit there and blame that. You can't just sit there and essentially say, okay, like, let's use me. Okay, my dad was an alcoholic. Man, that sucks. You know what I mean? Like, no, I can't live my life, man. My dad, he has his own issues. Like, bro, like, you can't just sit there and just sit in your depression. You see what I'm saying? So, my whole thing is, the reason the victim mentality, like when I meet people who I interpret have victim mentalities, that shit kind of pisses me off because I'm like, yo, fam, like, okay, here's something that I realized. Like, I woke up and I was like, yo, wait a minute. My life is a pure reflection on my effort. Like, everything in my life is predicated and determined by my own effort. Once I really, really came to that realization, there was nothing else to think about. Now we just getting up and we doing shit. You feel what I'm saying? So one thing has been we got to realize. So here's another thing I want to talk about too. Because your situation, everybody has different situations, but your situation, once you come to this realization of, okay, I need to, some of this is my fault, right? The reason I don't have the body I want, the reason I'm not where I want to be at in life, it's my fault, right? Once you come to that realization, you have to like almost commit to changing it. And the thing we got to realize this as men, it might not be fixed in a day. It might take 2 years to fix this shit, right? And that's another issue that we have just as humans. We see that we're in a hole, right? And I like to think I'm really good with analogies and shit. So we see that we're in a hole, right? I'm gonna give you an example that you can maybe visualize. Imagine you at the bottom of a 10-foot well and you got to figure a way to get out of this shit, right? And you like, damn, like, I can't just get out of here with one Super Smash Bros jump. I got to climb. I got to like hold on to stuff. You see what I'm saying? I got to really work my way out of here. And that's what most of us do with our lives. We see that we can't fix this shit with one move. So we sit in a comfort zone and we just kind of accept it. And it's funny because the more you sit in that comfort zone, the deeper that hole gets, if that makes sense. Hope that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Right? But the more work you do, the easier it is to climb out of that hole. Right? And the more work that you don't do, and you just sit in that comfort zone, it's harder to climb out of that hole. Everybody got that? Okay. So it's almost like you sinking. All right. So once again, I tend to I tend to babble. I tend to ramble. So you got to realize that even if you can't fix your situation in a day, what can you control? Like what's something that you can't control? Because once again, you can't control everything, but there's some shit you can control. You can control the things you put in your body. Just going to the gym, this off the top of my head, going to the gym, how you show up. Like, there are things you can control. Your situation might be so bad, but the way you show up for yourself, that goes such a long way. You gotta think about that. Having a positive attitude genuinely can change your whole day, your whole outlook on things, right? So you got to look at what you can control, and from that point, you can start fixing your situation. Everybody understand that? Okay. All right, but first, show up for yourself. Use the gym as an outlet. You got run clubs. Just don't sit in that dark place where you feel helpless. Because I've been there many, many times. Trust me, our minds are very powerful. They play tricks on us. So you got to see what you can control and just be relentless. So control this, and then fix your situation and use, like, for instance, right? Let's say, okay, I can control going to the gym. I can show up to the gym. Use that energy from the gym to fix whatever your situation is. All right. If anybody needs me to explain or expound on that any further, you can just hit me on IG, Dekufin, DEKUFINN on IG. Yes, that's Deku from My Hero Academia. So look, this podcast, I'm not doing this so I can just talk shit into a mic, right? Like, I'm here to, like, give advice, but then I'm also here for you guys to take, like, actionable steps, right? Like, I don't want y'all to listen to this shit and be like, man, like, fuck, cool video, cool podcast, Finn. That made me feel good, and I know that you're right, but I'm gonna go back and do the same shit. Like, that's not the purpose of this. So, by the way, if you have no intention of, like, actually putting some of this stuff into action, you can just turn this shit off. Like, don't just listen to this for funsies. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So you've taken blame. I don't want to say take blame, but you realize that you're more in control of your life than you realize. So what's next, right? So I got a list for you guys, right? And I'm gonna give you guys a step by step. I want you guys to write this down, right? If you're driving, come back to this, or you can DM me on the gram, and I'll give you guys this list. But if you're just hanging out, write this down. If you're in the gym, jot this down. Here we go. So what I want you to do is I want you to block out some time on your calendar. So you should be using your calendar to organize your life. We'll chat about that in a different episode. But here's what you do. I want you to make, like, an appointment with yourself. Like, so tomorrow, it could be after work. You can wake up early, do it. Give yourself 30 minutes to an hour, right? And here's what you're going to do. I want you to get out. So once again, I want you to make an appointment with yourself, right? Let me just be super clear. Put that in your calendar and save it, and make sure nothing else conflicts. You don't want to push this shit off. All right, everybody got it? Okay, so you're gonna make an appointment with yourself, and you're gonna say whatever you want to title it: appointment with myself, spring cleaning, whatever. Like, right? That's one of my steps, actually. So let's just actually. Step 1 was to realize you have more control over your life. So let's go to step 2. Step 2 is spring cleaning. So, it's spring and shit. So this is a perfect time for me to mention this. So it's that time of the year, weather changing, all that good stuff. You know what spring cleaning is. People changing their winter clothes to their spring clothes, right? So this is your first step. I need you to identify what your bad habits are, right? So this is step 2, but this is part of it. Identify what your bad habits are, right? Habits that are preventing you from being productive. So just a few off the top of my head. Is it excessive drinking or smoking? So let me say this too, because I mentioned this earlier in the episode. I don't condemn people who drink or smoke. It's just not my thing, and I have my own experience with it. Because people will be like, I tell people I don't drink, and they're like, oh well, I don't drink that much, and I'm like, dude, like, you don't got to dress this shit up for me, like, like, I'm not, like, I don't hate people who drink or smoke. It's just not something I do. Now, let me also be clear: do I think you should drink and smoke? Not really, because I don't think it's smart to do anything to your body that does not help it function properly. But I don't hate people who drink or smoke. I don't even think drinking or smoking is, like, wrong per se. No, I just lied. I don't think it's wrong in a sense of, like, you can't ever do it, But should you do it on a consistent, like if it's affecting your life, like if you wake up the next day and you're hammered, you got hammered the night before and you can't function, yeah, probably shouldn't be doing that because you just lost a day, right? So, and this don't have to be substance related. This could be eating the wrong things. This could be anything that you identify as a bad habit, hanging with the wrong people, not waking up on time. You know what I'm saying? Here's a great one. Here's a great one. Watching Corn. I don't know if I could say what it actually is, but you know what I mean by watching Corn. The Hub. Right? And we definitely gonna get into this on another episode. But this, because that shit alone deserves its own episode. But look, you gotta stop watching it. There are no exceptions. You cannot watch, like I said, I'm gonna save that for another episode, but you cannot watch it. Okay, thank you. So you take a list of all your bad habits, take a look at your environment, look at who you hang with, look how you spend your time, make an assessment of all these things and just write them down, whatever, right? And once you have that list, we're going to move on to step 3. Step 3 is what I like to call trim the fat. Trim the fat. That means that we cut out all these bad habits. So let's use a few examples of this, right? In the previous step. Let's use like a few examples. So let's use one. I'm doing one take. I'm not gonna lie. So let's use a few examples. I'm gonna be real with y'all. Like, dude, I ran a half marathon yesterday, and bro, this is something I gotta work on. I literally do not be sleeping sometimes. That shit is terrible. I'm definitely gonna knock out tonight. And the clock went forward and shit. So, bro, I'm dead tired. But we still gonna get this working. I got my black coffee, no cream, no sugar. That joint is like propelling me through my day. You know what I mean? So, all right. Okay, we're going to trim the fat, all right? So that means you take out everything that you identify as a bad habit and you just trim that shit out of your life, right? So if you're eating too much junk food, for instance, right? In order to cut out a bad habit, because habits are difficult, like I'm not going to act like they're not difficult, right? So let's just use the example of like eating junk food, right? If you got junk food, in order to stop eating it, you have to introduce friction to that, right? So what you do is you don't keep it in the house. That's friction. Now, granted, you can still walk into a store and buy the junk food, but it's giving you an extra step in order to acquire that thing. You see what I'm saying? Okay, you got to add friction. And low-key, I think I stole this method and tactic from Brandon Carter. Like, I'm not going to take credit for shit that's not mine. So, yeah, if the ice cream is not in the crib, you can't eat it. So, obviously, like I said, you can go and buy it, but you have to take another step. Yeah, this is definitely Brandon Carter definitely said this. Here we go. If you're trying to, I'm going back to the hub. If you're trying to quit watching Corn, the Corn Hub, you need to remove all triggers. So you need to unfollow girls. If you follow, bro, I'm gonna be real with you. If you follow IG models or any girl, if you follow girls that don't follow you back, what are you doing, bro? Like, what? Why? Why are you doing this? See, here's the thing, and I'm gonna go into this on a different episode. You motherfuckers that watch porn and OnlyFans, y'all get mad at the women who do it, but you gotta realize, women, bro, if the shit was truly deplorable amongst men, women would not do it. But y'all are buying this shit. Like, if there's a market for something, girls are gonna indulge in the shit, and we making girls millionaires and shit. Like, bro, anyway, so you need to remove all the triggers from your environment. So let's just talk about our phone. Unfollow all girls that don't fucking follow you back. Unfollow girls that don't follow you back. Unfollow girls who post sexual things. You know what I mean? Any type of sexual things. Delete sexual things from your phone. Like I said, like I'm gonna go a few layers deep in a different episode because that alone deserves its own episode. So step 4 is to build. So, step 1, we identified that we have more control over our lives. Then we're going to do a spring cleaning where we not acquire, but we gather all of our bad habits and then we trim the fat. Now, step 4 is to build, because what we're going to do essentially, we're going to take those habits and we're going to replace them with new habits, right? So, I discussed this in the previous episode about how in order to build a habit, you just do it until it's normal, right? So, we removed all the things that we consider setbacks, right? Now we need to build new habits and systems to accomplish these. We need to build systems to accomplish these habits every day, right? So I will go deeper into this on how to be more productive and all that good stuff. But essentially, if you want to wake up earlier, right? What do you need to do to wake up earlier? Like, what's the system you need to build to wake up earlier? For instance, let's say you're trying to wake up at 6 a.m. every morning, right? You need to make sure you go to bed at a certain time. Okay, because I'm not going to hold you. As someone who wakes up early as hell, I wake up at like 3:45, 4 o'clock every morning. Yes, every morning. I need to go to sleep sooner. But as someone who wakes up early as fuck, and the key to waking up early is the night before. You see what I'm saying? So depending on what you're doing, you can set out your clothes the night before. You can basically build yourself like a nighttime routine, right? In order to build, right? In order to wake up early, you got to prepare the night before. There's no way around that. So that's just an example of a system you can build to accomplish, that goal. Okay, let me get a swig of this water. All right. So, this part of the podcast, we're going to talk. This is the fitness corner. I got to come up with a new name for it. I'm not going to lie. So, this is where I provide value and teach you guys how to achieve your best, most lean physique. And today we're going to talk about the best exercises in order to achieve the lean physique. So, in order to get that perfect V-taper, I have 4 exercises that you guys can start doing today. And these aren't particularly in order, but first we got the overhead barbell press, right? So this mainly targets the shoulders, more of a front delt exercise, but obviously your entire shoulder. However, this is also a great exercise to gauge like your overall strength. By the way, when you do this, you need to be standing up. I said barbell. So any overhead press, you need to stand up while you're doing it, right? That's how you gauge your real strength. Like, I'm not trying to shit on seated presses or whatever, but you need to be standing up while you're doing it. Second is the deadlift. So you can use the barbell or you can use the trap bar deadlift, right? When I see people argue, people in the fitness industry are funny, dude. They argue over like, oh, you got to use the barbell because of this. I'm just like, bro, just use both. There are people who argue like, should you use the barbell or the dumbbell? You use both, bro. Like you just switch it up, right? So to me, that shit just makes me laugh. Because like when I train my clients, I change their exercises so you're going to notice that these exercises that I list, they're all compound exercises. Maybe I'll tell you what compound exercises are. Just exercises that train more than one muscle group, right? Squat, bench, deadlift, right? So when we keep the compound lifts because those are like the compound lifts are like the core of like, not the core, but like they're like the main exercises. We keep the same compound lifts in. We just change, we change the rest time, the reps. But depending on the compound exercise, we might do a dumbbell press instead of a barbell press, right? So they do 2 different things. Anyway, so deadlift is like one of my favorite exercises. Honestly, like a top 3 favorite exercise. So let's move on to the third exercise. Third exercise is what they call the king of all exercises, and that is a simple barbell back squat. So this trains your entire like posterior chain in the back, or everything waist down on the back side of your body. But yeah, I don't need to talk about squats. Squats are great, right? So the fourth exercise is a barbell bench press. This is a great exercise for obviously your chest. It's a great way to build overall push and strength just in general, right? So if you need questions answered as far as how to structure your workouts, you can send me a DM on the gram, Dekufin, DEKUFINN. If you're wondering if that's Deku from My Hero Academia, you are correct. So yes, those are all compound lifts. And if you notice, which I mentioned earlier, those are compound lifts, and they basically train more than one muscle group. So they have one target, but they also hit other muscle groups. All right. Okay. All right, man. So that is episode 2, man. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you hated this episode, if you loved it, you can give me feedback on the gram, Dekufin, DEKUFINN. And I appreciate you guys, man. Episode 2 already. Just a heads up, I do want to change this into a video podcast soon, but we're just starting with audio. So, all right, man, I appreciate you guys, man. I will see you guys next time. All right, peace.